In our last video, we discussed the attributes that define an effective copywriter. In this video, we go into more detail on the difference between good writing and good copywriting. The wisdom that defines good writing isn't necessarily the same as that which defines good copywriting. Today, we're going to identify some of those differences and teach you to recognize good copywriting when you see it, and also when you write it. So why aren't they the same? Why isn't all good writing good copywriting? While copywriting is a type of writing, meaning there will be some overlap, all writing doesn't make good copy because the goals and the audience are quite different. Writing is done for many reasons, but copy is always targeted at a specific type of person in the hopes that they will take a desired action. To achieve this unique purpose, copy must sometimes employ different tactics to do so. Before we can really explain why good writing doesn't make good copywriting, though, we need to establish what good writing is. Unfortunately, good writing is almost impossible to define. If you asked 1,000 professors to define good writing, you'd almost get 1,000 different answers. Even good writers define good writing in wildly disparate ways. George Orwell put it, "Good writing's like a window pane." According to Marilyn Hacker, good writing gives energy, whatever it's about. And according to Richard Harding Davis, the secret of good writing is to say an old thing in a new way, or to say a new thing in an old way. I could go on and on. Perhaps paraphrasing Justice Stewart's famous quote on pornography says it best. I can define it, but I can't define it, but I know it when I read it. Still, there are certain elements of good writing that are universally understood. First, good writing conforms to the conventions of standard English and is free of grammar, punctuation, spelling, and other linguistic errors. It also has a clear purpose that is achieved in the piece, communicated by a unique, clear voice. It uses memorable, specific vocabulary for excellent word choice that creates fluent, well-organized sentences. Ideas in good writing are interesting, and they have deeper meaning that makes them important, as well as the fact that they are unique. This is pretty general, of course, and doesn't necessarily differ from good copywriting. After all, copywriting is still a form of writing, and you should do it well. That said, the goals of good copywriting are different than those of good writing in general. Good copywriting targets a specific audience to promote a specific product and compels a specific action. It sells something, be it a product or simply an idea. Because of this, not all rules of good writing apply. You can have a piece of copy that's objectively quite grammatically incorrect that still sells well. Take the Starbucks print ad, for example. Punctuation's wrong, the capitalization is weird, and objectively speaking, it uses a linguistic trope that would be edited out in almost any other type of writing. However, it works well as an ad. Now, of course, this is just a quick example, but the point remains that poor writing can sometimes work as good copy, be it in an ad like this, on a website, in a tweet, or even in a blog. Not all qualities of good literature translate well into copywriting. Long drawn-out metaphors get lost. Highly symbolic language simply loses the reader in the short time you grab their attention. Punctuated headings encourage the reader to stop reading. Difficult vocabulary or sentence structure can frustrate the average audience. And clever wordplay often disguises the meaning or purpose, defeating the purpose of copy by failing to convert. Now, that's not to say that none of these can ever be found in copy, but effective copy rarely uses most of them. Perhaps the best way to really establish the difference between good writing in general and good copywriting is to explore the key aspects that divide them. There are 5 key aspects that we will discuss that define good copywriting, but rarely other forms of good writing. The first aspect is breaking grammar rules carefully. Correct grammar and punctuation is a key quality used to define most types of good writing. Not always so with copywriting. Good copy reads the way we speak, which means that grammar rules can be broken carefully to great effect. Starting a sentence with conjunction, like and, also, besides, else, or, otherwise, but, however, so, can sound natural and add a much needed punch to what you're saying. Sentences flow much more fluidly when you simply end sentences with prepositions, rather than go far out of your way to avoid it. After all, no one really says, "To whom are you speaking?" "Who are you talking to?" is much more common. In copy, common is actually a good thing. It sounds familiar and puts the content on the level of the desired audience. While good literature tends to avoid tropes, cliches, and other familiar expressions, copy uses this to make content sound familiar. Same goes with slang and contractions. They're natural in speech, so they make good copy. Even fragments occasionally work well in copy. They create urgency and excitement, or even a firm, commanding tone. The key is to not overuse them, or you can start to sound illiterate. In fact, the key to breaking grammar rules in copywriting is to do it just enough that it sounds natural. Too little and the content reads too formally. Too much and it starts to sound like you didn't edit very well. In literature, short content can be perfectly fine, but then again, so can long, flowery descriptions. In copy, shorter is sweeter. Ideally, your sentences should never ramble. On average, a sentence should be 16 words or less and express a single thought for ultimate readability. Once a sentence exceeds 32 words, it becomes harder for people to understand. Even though linking thoughts is a quality of good writing, it should be done with extreme caution when you're copywriting, for the sake of clarity. When in doubt, break it up. Paragraphs should also be short and punchy. Forget about the proper structure of a paragraph from a literary point of view that requires an opening, middle, and closing. A shorter paragraph looks easier to read, and this helps motivate your audience to keep going. Paragraphs ideally should run no longer than 7 lines, especially in sales letters or in emails, no matter how your given line actually is, even if this is quite limited. In fact, a single sentence paragraph is fine. Break up the thoughts into many paragraphs, and make sure not to go too long with a header to break up your series of paragraphs. Shorter isn't always better just for the sake of brevity, of course. You need to convey the full thought the audience needs to understand. The point is that you give the customer exactly enough content to make your point, and not a word more. Most writing is written either in the first person, about I and me, or in the third person, about he, she, and they. Copy is almost always written in the second person. That's because it's all about the reader. When we reach out to you, we're better able to draw the audience into the sales process in a personal way. This allows you to speak directly to your prospects with the message. Occasionally, you may need to include the company by using I and we. But unless you're telling a story or a testimonial, don't use that third person. It's not our customers love this feature, it's you will love this feature, because we want to make them a customer. It's all about the audience, you. The second person also lets us use command language. Not only does this further foster inclusivity, it helps us build urgency and compel that desired action. There's no such thing as implying or subtly suggesting action in copy. You need to tell your prospect what to do. Whether you have a call to action button that says, "Get your free incentive now," or simply, "Call today," you need to be direct. Command language in the second person lets you do this. When you're writing copy, redundancy and repetition help you make your point. If I were writing good literature, either redundancy or repetition would have been taken out. They mean the same thing. They're, well, redundant. In copy, this helps you drive your point home. When you reinforce what you say by saying the same thing twice in different words, it emphasizes your point and clarifies your reading. All copy has redundancy, not just through the content as a whole, but even in simple phrases and vocab. Free gift may mean the same thing technically as gift, but free gift sounds a lot more valuable to the average customer. Use the redundancy intelligently because it works. Of course, you don't want to overdo it and sound like a broken record, but most potential customers need some extra convincing before taking action. A little repetition can help. Finally, all copy should have an urgent, clear call to action. While in other types of writing, the call to action can be hidden in the subtleties of the writing, and in fact often should. The call to action in copy should be in your face. There's no such thing as a subtle copy call to action. It needs to be as clear as possible what action should be taken, when, and how. In fact, an unclear, subtle, or hidden call to action is simply a missed opportunity. The audience won't do what you want, and your copy won't sell. This is ultimately just lost revenue and a waste of copy. Urgency is also key in copy, a rarity in most other forms of writing. Urgency helps you get that yes now, rather than having the audience think about it, a situation that usually, unfortunately, ends in a decision against. That's why a deadline on an offer, or language like call now, today only, is so common in copy. It forces the audience to make a decision. While these 5 aspects of good copywriting differ dramatically from traditional ideas of good writing, that doesn't mean you should throw out all elements of good writing entirely. Copywriting is still a form of writing, and successful copywriters write well. Keep that in mind as a copywriter, because you should still do the following, just like in any good writing. Don't be boring. Make your writing appeal to the audience, pique their interest, and draw them in to read more. Boring writing is the fastest way to lose your audience. Connect emotionally with the audience. A good writer, and a good copywriter, connects with the audience emotionally to get a desired response. Choose your words carefully. Word choice is important in good writing, and even more so in good copywriting. If you're writing short and sweet, every word matters. You better choose the best one. Give vivid details. Vivid details allow the audience to picture what you're describing more easily. This is important whether conveying a fight scene in a book or the way your life changes after buying a product. Be creative and imaginative. Again, boring writing loses readers. Creative, imaginative copywriters are able to get a fresh perspective on an old or familiar product and renew your interest. Use a unique, clear voice. Voice matters no matter what you're writing. It needs to be consistent, clear, and one of a kind. Foster a specific mood in your writer. The way you write creates a mood in your reader. In copywriting, mood determines whether your audience is interested in taking your desired action. Finally, write with conviction and passion. Unless you're passionate about what you're writing and do so with conviction, you'll never get the passion of the audience. Remember, writing well is important when copywriting. You just need to know when to break with tradition. In fact, I think William Birnbach said it best. Let us prove to the world that good taste, good art, and good writing can be good selling. Good copy can still be written well. Good copywriting just isn't always the same thing as good writing. Thanks for listening. I hope you have a much better idea now of what kind of copy can be considered good copy, so you can better recognize it and better write it yourself. Our next lesson explores some of the advice given by master copywriters and world-renowned copywriting experts. So make sure to watch and learn from the best.